And the California governor's push to get the National Guard out of LA heads to a courtroom tomorrow. Gavin Newsom asked for a temporary restraining order. The judge denied that request, but did agree to hear arguments. Democratic Senator Alex Padilla from California was on the takeout with Major Garrett last night, slamming the president's response to those demonstrations.
The increasingly aggressive and cruel tactics of the immigration enforcement is what's prompting the response of people who are passionate about speaking up for our fundamental rights and due process, because the enforcement operations have gone far beyond just the violent criminals or the dangerous criminals that Donald Trump has promised.
For more on the situation in LA, let's connect now with CBS News correspondent Jonathan Vigliotti. Good morning, Jonathan. We know the governor's pushing to get the National Guard out of LA, but you've spoken with the city's police chief. What did he have to say about the president's decision to deploy troops there?
Yeah, Errol, good morning to you. The police chief telling me that that move was unnecessary, going on to say that the National Guard at no point has provided assistance to them since the Guard arrived here on Sunday. We're actually here outside the staging area for the Guard troops. 4,000 have been deployed to downtown Los Angeles. We have not seen in our reporting the National Guard out on the streets. Instead, they've been primarily focused on federal buildings. In fact, their very presence has attracted more protesters, and we have watched as the LAPD has stepped in to assist holding those protesters back. The police chief saying at no point has there also been coordination with the federal government. Take a listen to our exchange.
We don't need the National Guard, and they're not here to help us right now. They're here to facilitate what the federal agencies are doing on the immigration front.
See, I'm confused because President Trump said that they were brought in to assist with the protests.
Yeah, well, that's not our understanding.
And we're also learning that the National Guard is now assisting in ICE raids in what appears to be really the first of its kind widespread deployment of the military in such operations. You talked about that restraining order that was denied, that restraining order the governor is trying to put in place for that very reason. Meanwhile, the Marines are here, 700 of them, Errol, but they have not been assigned yet because they're going through what is being described as additional training before interfacing with the public. Errol?
Interesting. Jonathan, with that live report for us from LA just past 4:30 in the morning there. John, thank you. As anti-ICE protests spread across the country, President Trump is warning against protests at his upcoming military parade, saying they will be met with force. The President and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth were at Fort Bragg yesterday to kick off Army anniversary celebrations. Retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Russell Honoré joined the Daily Report last night to talk about how service members typically feel about parades and deployment within the U.S.
Two missions soldiers don't like. Number one is to be deployed to do civil disturbance missions inside the United States of America. The other mission at the top of the list that soldiers despise and don't like is doing a damn parade, because that means they got to march in this parade.
CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is tracking the latest for us and joins us from the White House with more. Ed, good morning to you. We heard General Honoré there, but I know that earlier you had mentioned this week that politically, you know, the law and order approach, if we call it that, for President Trump on immigration kind of works for him. But what concerns are you hearing about this potentially escalating?
Well, and Russell Honoré, who, of course, was deployed as part of the keeping the peace after Hurricane Katrina, knows a thing or two about these domestic deployments. Beyond that, we spoke yesterday with the former Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel, who's also a former Republican senator and an Army veteran, worked for President Obama. And we asked him, you know, if you're a military officer, a senior officer, who hears the president say, if you're going to protest across the country, I'm going to deploy troops, what might that officer be thinking? What they start to think, Hagel suggested, is that there may come a point soon where the president orders them to do something here inside the United States that becomes an order they feel the need to defy, and that could be a real career-ending moment and a nightmare scenario for some of these officers who understand that, you know, that there are limits to what exactly the military can or should do in the United States itself versus when it's deployed overseas. And so there's going to be some concern at the Pentagon and across the military ranks that depending on how some of these protests go across the country, depending on the president's desire to try to stop it or at least intimidate protesters, there may come a point where they have to sort of stand in the way and say, no, sir, I'm not going to carry out that order. Relieve me if you must.
Yeah, important to think of the perspective of those in the military. Ed, thank you for that.